I'm Anna Runkle, also known as the Crappy Childhood Fairy. And last week I talked about guilt. And this week I want to talk about its sibling, blame. Why we're sometimes justified in blaming others for struggles we have today, but also why blame can be like kryptonite for our ability to heal. It's disempowering, and it's not always realistic. When we're talking about abuse and neglect in childhood, there's no way to avoid placing blame on the parents who perpetrated the abuse or the neglect. On some level, even if they had mental health problems or addictions that clouded their awareness, they had to know that what they were doing is wrong, but they did it anyway. And this early trauma was so far beyond our control as kids, there's nothing we could have done to stop it, and nothing we could have done to prevent it from having a lasting effect on us. So the first thing we can say is, we are not to blame for what happened. And that's not always internalized, so it needs to be acknowledged. We are not to blame. But the reason I want to go a little deeper into the subject of blame is that it has a tendency to fester, to sit there. And without any healing, it can spread and start infecting other parts of our lives and our memories. I had an older brother who died about 25 years ago, the same year my mother died, but about 6 months after she died. And he was 38, I was 31, and his body just gave out at the age of 38 from years of drug and alcohol abuse. It was heroin and alcohol. And I haven't really talked about him yet on Crappy Childhood Fairy, but he was really, really sick. He couldn't hold down a job, got into fights, was thrown in jail several times for being drunk and disorderly. He'd clean up a little in rehab sometimes for a short time, and then he just couldn't sustain it, and he'd fall back into his addictions. He had a lot of good qualities. He was funny and smart and always wanted to kind of keep the family together, even when that was hard. But it was really hard to have any kind of a relationship with him, and not just because of the erratic craziness of the drugs and drinking, but because he was just so obsessed with why he was like this, and specifically what my mom had done to make him that way. He talked about himself all the time, to the point that he was completely in his own world. And in his mind, his many, many problems with money and with getting along with people, he had a near-death motorcycle accident at one point that left him in a long coma. He believed that all of this was our mother's fault. Now, my mother had her faults, certainly, and because she was an alcoholic, she was not able to take care of us very consistently. And I have childhood PTSD, and clearly he did too, but my brother would say over and over again, I just need her to admit what she did, and then I'll be able to stop drinking and using. He didn't just believe that she held the key to his sobriety. It's like all he ever talked about. And honestly, it was a real drag when he'd start in on this. I didn't share his beliefs, and I didn't respect him for putting all the blame for his life on her. And honestly, from my point of view, I saw them both as really difficult people. And the more I've recovered from my own problems, the more I see them both as just another couple of alcoholics who were powerless to stop drinking and using. And for whatever reason, which was a little different for each of them, they just couldn't recover, and they both died early as a result. It's a mystery why people succumb to this kind of thing and other people don't. So I can't speak for my mother, but my brother talked with me a lot about the hardships of his life. And it's true. I was there. We were both neglected, and he was outright abused. But in his 30s, he was just basically hurting everyone around him. And he had a list of 100 excuses and these grievance stories he'd tell again and again. And I was no saint myself, but the difference between him and me was I gave up on trying to change my mother. And in fact, when I read literature and spoke to recovered alcoholics and came to understand what alcoholism is actually like, it was freeing to a degree, just knowing that she didn't ask to be alcoholic, just as I didn't ask to have PTSD. Everybody is damaged to one degree or another. And it's easy to think that if we were in another person's shoes, we'd be different, we'd be better. But there's people who probably could say that about us, and it would be just speculation and probably not true. Just like it's probably not true that the alcoholics in my life wanted to have the problems they did and mess up other people's lives in the process. No, they felt bad about their mistakes, just like we all feel bad about our mistakes. They were responsible for what they did, but in another way, they weren't to blame. Who's to say that if I had the same DNA and the same experiences that I wouldn't be just like anyone else that I'm looking down on. Maybe it's not even my brother's fault that he couldn't let go of believing that the key to his healing came from getting some resolution on the past. But after our mother died, he said that he felt hopeful that he could be free finally and get sober and finish school and get a good career. But her being gone, it didn't fix him. He still had his own problems. And the year that those two died was the year that I was shown the daily practice, writing my fears and resentments and then meditating every day, so that I could get free of my own blame scenarios and use that powerful clarity that it brings me to focus on things that I wanted to heal in my own life. And so here I am, free, connected to life, and very much alive. And I'm not thinking anymore about what happened. I'm more interested in sharing with other people how I broke out of those chains of being at the effect of the past. And I'm happy to share it with you. There are links in the description section below to free tools that you can try today, and I hope you do.